Hello, I'm Bianchi, Senior Lecturer in Arts Education, artist and researcher, and I would like to introduce you to some key concepts and approaches to teachers as part of a research community. The session will take about 2 to 3 hours, including all video links and readings which are on Minerva in Teachers as part of a research community. When you see the notepad icon, please pause, reflect, and record your responses for discussion. The session aims: identify and extend your understanding of research, recognise the range of approaches to research in education, understand links between research and teaching practice, consider how different research methods may be more suitable for specific questions, contexts and subjects, and develop strategies for applying research methods and insights in your teaching. So first of all, I'd like you to consider, what is research and how do you think it's relevant to teachers? Note down your thoughts for discussion later. Here's a very useful definition by Stenhouse 1981. Research is systematic inquiry made public. It's quoted in a more recent investigation into how research can inform teachers and teaching. The writers suggest that research which is relevant to educational practitioners might include research about educational processes, what works, also philosophical discussions about education, studies of educational outcomes, child development, research about the subject matters to be taught. We'll look more at this reading later on when you've got a little bit more understanding of what research in education involves. So, common misconceptions. Is research predominantly a quantitative, statistically based activity? Watch the video Intro to Research Methods and see what other approaches there are. Then consider, how many of the research approaches are you familiar with? How many of these research methodologies have you already come across? You may know that research can be quantitative, qualitative, or mixed model. So quantitative we associate with an experimental approach, gathering statistical data. This can be done in a variety of ways, through questionnaires, through experiment, through surveys, but the aim is to gather statistics which can then be put forward to create a model of research and outcomes. So the qualitative approach can also use some of the same methods, surveys, questionnaires, but the questions will be different. They'll be more open-ended. They won't require yes-no answer. Qualitative research is invariably more discursive. It leads to more extensive, descriptive, analytical, ethnographic narrative, also associational, looking for causes, and approaches which are very much action-based, case studies and action research, which can either be investigative or can also be interventional. Mixed model, of course, uses a range of different research approaches. Think about how many you've already used. Which of the academic, creative and scientific activities you've already engaged with include a research dimension? How many of these approaches could be used in educational research? Make a note for further discussion. Professor Tim Cain is a leading figure within the educational research world. In his short account in 2019, he writes, "Teachers use research to expand their teaching mindsets. In other words, research influences the general approach of teachers, particularly when teaching. Often, when teachers engage with research findings, they also undertake formal or informal inquiry into their own practice. They try out ideas from research and monitor the effect of these on pupils. So you can read this section again, look at Minerva and the link is there, and consider, how do teachers use research findings? How does it stimulate their own research thinking? Here's a video, Action Research in Education, also linked on Minerva. What is action research? Dr. Carol Davenport describes how action research in education can be applied as part of a continuous professional development programme, and she focuses on science education in schools and colleges. Of course, action research can occur across any discipline or subject. Consider, how does research, action research in this case, help to make an expert teacher who supports students' progress? Have you experienced such an engagement? BERA, the British Educational Research Association, and RSA, the Royal Society of Arts, are key figures in the world of research. They have produced in 2014 an extensive piece of research looking at the teaching profession and building the capacity for a self-improving education system. Read the short executive summary and reflect on these two areas, teaching and learning, and teachers' professional identity and practice. The summary suggests that learners are entitled to teaching that is informed by the latest relevant research. Teachers are entitled to work in a research-rich environment, supporting development of their own research literacy. Teachers also share a common responsibility for the continuous development of their research literacy, and both while qualifying and throughout their careers, they should have multiple opportunities to continue to engage in research and inquiry. BERA and RSA also recommend, with regard to both initial teacher education and teachers' continuing professional development, while there are pockets of excellent practice across the UK, good practice is inconsistent and insufficiently shared. Drawing on the research evidence, the inquiry concludes that amongst policymakers and practitioners, there is considerable potential for greater dialogue than currently takes place between teachers, teacher researchers, and the wider research community. From your own experience, both as a learner, observing, working in schools, and your wider reading, consider, how accurate do you think this evaluation is? And how can teachers continue to develop dialogue across the research community? And who is involved in research? This is a big topic at the moment. Ofsted have rewritten their Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Statement in 2020, and they state that education must promote equality across the 9 protected characteristics, which are age, disability, gender reassignment, pregnancy, maternity, race, religion, belief, sex, sexual orientation, and marriage and civil partnerships. Ofsted will monitor that schools eliminate discrimination, harassment and victimisation, and advance equality of opportunity and foster good relations between persons who share or do not share a relevant protected characteristic. You can find more by looking at the Ofsted Equality, Diversity and Inclusion link on Minerva. So how can we address these issues and generate a more equitable, pluralist and diverse educational culture? The British Council have long been responsible and engaged with this matter. Watch the video Connecting Classrooms, Global School Partnerships, the links on Minerva, and consider, How does the British Council's Global Action Research Exchange promote equality, diversity and inclusion? And how can global links and partnerships build more diverse society? The second video, focusing on global research, is based in India, AARMS Classroom-based Research Mela. Again, the link is on Minerva. Consider, what were the shared issues in this Indian classroom-based research context, and were there any distinctive issues related to the culture and the context? How do you think global research can help to eliminate discrimination and advance equality? Have you experienced yourself in this area? So let's go back to this reading. This is the most complex reading, which is why I've left it till last. Bounded decision making, teachers' reflection and organisational learning, how research can inform teachers and teaching. It's a worthwhile read. The paper investigates how research can contribute to teaching practitioners' thinking, informing bounded decision-making, teachers' reflection and organisational learning. It argues that this conceptualisation of research use has potential to inform researchers and practitioners. And yes, it's the same Cain who wrote the 2019 shorter article that you read earlier. While you're reading, consider, how does research contribute to the three functions of educational practice identified by BERA in 2015? The development of each student as an individual, socialising students into thinking and acting, teaching subject-specific bodies of knowledge, skills and values, qualifying students to take on active roles in society. While you're considering that, also reflect on the global issues that we've already discussed. What kind of society are we socialising students into? What kind of values are we sharing? We as teachers have a significant role in exploring this area. This model is outlined within the document: assumption, understanding evidence, discussion, decisions, actions. In the process of this, some of the assumptions, of course, might change. Research into professional learning communities shows that organisations such as schools learn where their members share, examine and critique their practice. Yes, that's part of the reflective practitioner model that you'll also learn about as within the course. Consider and suggest a teaching situation where this research model could work in practice. So now back to your subject. From the selection of subject-specific research articles, read your own subject exemplar outlining research processes within the arts, humanities or STEM subjects. If your own subject isn't there, read an equivalent discipline and identify, focus, research, methodology and outcomes. Consider the significance of the research method to the subject, focus and context. Could the research have employed a different methodology? If you have time, read a contrasting article and compare focus, methodology and outcomes. And enjoy your research-based teaching. I'm sure you will find it as interesting, exciting and rewarding as I do. Goodbye.